So, the big question is this: how are ambitious people like us, who don't have a lot of resources, did not go to Ivy League colleges, were not born into wealth, how do we become resourceful enough, use our creativity, our dedication, and a little bit of crazy to bootstrap our way to realizing our dreams? Whether it is launching a new company, launching a new app, or making it to the top of the corporate ladder. That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. Please like, share, and subscribe to get new episodes, videos, and other updates. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. I'm your host, Manuj Aggarwal, and today I will be talking with people management expert Mads Singers. Welcome, Mads.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're excited to learn all about people management, which is a very essential skill for every entrepreneur out there. So hope to learn a lot from you today. For everyone in the audience, Mads is a well-known expert on the topic of people management, and he has a tremendous amount of experience and knowledge about this topic, and he has agreed to share that with us today. All right, let's dive in. So to get started, Mads, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background and experience, so that our audience can get to know you better?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Denmark many years ago. I left Denmark when I was about 18, and I've since lived in Ireland, the UK, a bit in Eastern Europe, and then in Asia. Mm-hmm. My background was working in large corporate companies such as IBM and Xerox. Mm-hmm. And eventually I moved on and started my own business, right? Okay. I had a lot of management and outsourcing experience from IBM, particularly. Yeah. And I basically, even before I left IBM, I actually started coaching managers. But when I left full-time, I basically made that my full-time job for quite a while. Okay. So I still do that quite a bit, but it's a portion of what I do, right? So I also run a large outsourcing company called Aristo Sourcing. I see. And I have a few other smaller businesses that I run. So that's what I do. And my passion in life is building teams and getting people working together and growing and developing people. So
yeah. I mean, that's so important. Human resources are the most precious resources any company can possess. So tell us a little bit about your, how did you develop this skill for managing people? A lot of people actually, it's essential for everyone who wants to rise, and a lot of people struggle with that. So tell us about your journey. Did you have any early struggles, and how did you actually learn?
Yeah, I mean, in general, actually, my management interest came when I started my first job. So initially, I took an IT education, and I was very much of an IT guy for a long time. And what happened was when I was about 18 and I got my first job, I got a manager, and she was just amazing. And I loved the way I could see her influence all the people around her. Mm-hmm. I could see how much they loved loved working for her, and loved being part of that team. Mm-hmm. And that really, really inspired me. So already when I was about 18, I actually started studying management, not as a language or not officially as an education, but self-development. And for about 12 years or so, I probably read about a book a week. Uh-huh. I've done listened to tremendous amount of podcasts, webinars. In the beginning, I self-funded a ton of trainings and seminars and so on that I went on, and that's basically how I initially developed my skill. And really, the key thing for me have always been the passion for it, right? Yeah. Where a lot of people, they, particularly in the corporate world, they work 9 to 5, they go home and they don't give a shit kind of thing. Where I've always been so passionate about management itself, and
okay, awesome. That's great. And tell us a little bit about your early experiences. Did you run into any problems, any struggles, any challenges, or
all the time?
Okay, so yeah,
all the time, and I still do. So I would say early on, so one of the things for me was I got to study a lot before I started doing. Okay, and that was very interesting because when I started actually managing people, I was like, I knew the right things to do, but still in the moment, spirit of the moment, you make mistakes. But because I had all the sort of theoretical knowledge in the back of my head, I very quickly realized after I had made a mistake, oh, I shouldn't have done that, right? And that helped me grow very fast early on and really helped me move forward really fast when I started going into managing people, because I had all this knowledge that I then became able to apply. Right. So that was a big part of sort of my startup. But yeah, I mean, even today, I still make a ton of mistakes, right? Everyone does, but the key thing is learning from it, getting better, and gradually improving things, right?
Okay, great. Now, for our audience who are mostly entrepreneurs or professionals, tell us what is the first step they need to take to get better at people management.
So it depends a little bit on the individual, right? Because as human beings, we all have sort of certain strengths and weaknesses.
Sure.
Generally, what majority of my clients struggle with the most is around delegation, letting go of responsibilities, and effectively growing people around them, right? Because a lot of management is really, when you move into a management role, it stops being about what you do and starts becoming about what the team does. So a lot of people find that very difficult, and specifically, like a lot of people who get promoted into management positions, what happens is they're used to being looked up to because they've been doing exceptional performance as an individual. But the thing is, when you go into a management role, like you can say, oh, I did everything I was supposed to do, like I checked all my email, I did all this stuff, but the team didn't hit the goal because my staff didn't do what they were supposed to do, right? And at that point in time, what you do as an individual really stops mattering, and really what starts mattering and what becomes key is how you affect other human beings and the team to actually do what they're supposed to, right?
Sure.
So delegation is definitely one of the key areas where I really work with a lot of people, because it's particularly for tech people or people who are quite organized and perfectionistic. Delegation is really, really difficult, right? Because it's letting go of things where you're the expert and you have to trust someone to take it over, and it's very, very difficult. But I work with a lot of people to help solve that puzzle, if you will, right?
Yeah, that's so critical. Like as individuals, we can only achieve so much, and trusting other people and delegating is very important part of scaling your business or whatever you're working on.
And developing them. I mean, the thing is, in a lot of these businesses where people don't delegate well, what happens is that the people around them don't grow so fast because they're not being given the responsibility.
Exactly.
And what that means is that they go even further apart. So if you today know a ton of stuff, but if you don't delegate, then 6 months from now, your staff will be even further behind. So instead of actually catching up and getting closer to you from a skill set perspective, they actually go further behind, which is such a shame, right?
Yeah, for sure. All right. So now, in terms of getting used to the idea of delegation and things like that, what kind of tools or techniques do you generally sort of recommend for people to change their mindset?
So first of all, depending a little bit, mostly for new entrepreneurs, right? The whole key thing, like the fundamental for me, is really looking at what does it take to do certain jobs and certain tasks. Because fundamentally, right, the way I look at business is like, if you're doing something that someone getting paid less than you could be doing, you're really wasting business resources. And a lot of entrepreneurs in the beginning, they're so keen on taking care of the cash. Like they'll do their own bookkeeping, they'll do their own, like they'll clean their own office, they'll do all these things because they're so tight on the cash, right? But the challenge is that takes a lot of energy and everything out of them, right? To actually do what they're good at and where they create value.
Sure.
Right, because if you're doing stuff that someone getting paid $2 an hour, $5 an hour, $10 an hour could do, and your value is I mean, when you do work with clients, you pay $50 or $100 an hour, then obviously you're much better doing more client work and getting other people to do the rest, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the key sort of mindsets that's really important to understand initially.
Yeah.
The second thing is really about, I mean, from a delegation point specifically, right? A lot of people are like, oh, but if I teach everyone exactly what to do, they'll steal my company, or they'll take my job, and the whole point is that it actually works the other way around. What happens is, if you enable someone to do exactly what you do today, you can do much more important stuff in the future, right? Which enable, one, your company to grow, and two, enable the people to grow. And it enable you, like every time you stop doing something that's worth, just from a monetary standpoint, $5 an hour, and you start doing more that's worth $50 or $100 an hour, that's how you increase the value of your company. All right.
Sure,
and that's the fundamental mindset.
And to your point, like not everybody has an entrepreneurial mindset. I mean, not everyone wants to start their own business, and
definitely.
All right. So now, what about the factor of control or making sure that things are done right? Like, a lot of people have this apprehension that if I allow somebody else to do it, it's not going to be done as well. So how do you sort of maintain the quality standards or the expectations that have been set up by the clients or customers or your boss?
So there's a bunch of steps to that. So number one is, you have not always done everything perfect, right? We're all human beings. We all make mistakes. It happens. Second is, with your guidance, they're likely going to be a lot better than you were in the beginning. Right? And thirdly, I would say, where it makes sense, you definitely want to build SOPs or business processes that can be followed and can be standardized, because a lot of delivery is not that complex. And if you already have a good recipe, that's generally a good starting point for delegating. Right? Now, you want to delegate responsibility, meaning you want to give the responsibility for people to improve things over time. But initially, it's a great way of starting out if you have some great standard operating procedures that show people what to do. Right?
For sure. Go ahead. Sorry.
So one thing I really like doing as well, like we do a ton of video, right? But whether it's local staff or remote staff, I always like, in the beginning, particularly with more complex tasks, right? When you're delegating things, a lot of people miss a very critical step. So a lot of the time they show people what to do and they tell them to go do it. Whereas the best way to generally delegate more complex things is show people what to do, let them do it while you watch them until you're comfortable that they're doing well, and then let them go do it themselves.
Okay, that's interesting. Right.
So a lot of the time, the thing is, often it's small things people misunderstand, but it gives a big mistake in the end of the day. Whereas if you actually spend the time watching someone do a task, you'll very quickly realize if they've misunderstood something, right? And therefore, it puts you in a much better position to fix the issues in the beginning, meaning the end results you get is generally significantly higher.
So that's quite interesting approach. But how do you ensure it doesn't come across as micromanagement?
Well, micromanagement is more the other way around, and constantly sitting looking over the shoulder, right? Like when you're delegating and teaching someone something new, it's totally okay to show and watch them what to do, right? Because again, like they feel supported. If you have never built a website and I want to show you how to build a website, like if I have to actually watch you and help you through the process, people feel that's helpful. Now, you don't want to keep doing that for the next 17 years, but doing it initially to sort of make sure they've understood the concept and exactly what they're doing, that's totally okay.
Okay, great. And now, what about some difficult situations where you're trying to delegate, you're trying to teach, and it just is not working, and the overall team performance is suffering, or in some cases, even the whole business is suffering. So what are some of the recommendations from you to handle these situations?
Yeah, so that there is a couple of things that is important to take into consideration. All people are not the same.
Yeah.
Which also means all people don't have the same strengths and weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the key things, and one of the key things that I teach in my management course, is really learning to understand different types of personalities and what they're generally good at, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you take the wrong person and get them to do a complicated advanced Excel report, they will absolutely fail, right? Because some people are naturally superb with numbers and logic and so on, and some people are not, right? And it's not just a learning thing; it's how our brains are wired, right? And therefore, being able to actually to start with, also when you recruit, like being able to find people who don't just sound good and can't just talk well for themselves, but actually have a natural behavior that fit that specific job or the specific task you want them to do is really, really important, right? And sometimes when you delegate, you do realize that sometimes these people aren't a great fit for this specific role and this specific task. And I always look at it in two ways, right? When you're analyzing your staff, there's people who are a great person, but doing the wrong job. Right. And if that's the case, you can obviously look if you have time, space, resources elsewhere in your organization to get them to do things that better fit their personality. You also have people who are bad personality is probably the wrong word, but not fitting the personality that you need in your company and can't do the job. And obviously, if those are the ones, you obviously want to make sure you can let go of those people as soon as possible. Right.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. All right, now let me talk about improving the performance of the team. So there are schools of thought that you need to give incentives, or there are some other schools of thought where monetary incentives are not considered good enough, but more sort of intrinsic motivation is encouraged. So, what are your views about that?
So my view is monetary incentives would work for you, right? What I mean with that specifically is you as a person. People are very different. And again, this comes down to personality type. For some people, money, fame, power is very important. And for some people, it's not. And if you actually learn to understand the different staff you have, and really understand like their strength and their weakness, you very quickly learn who's motivated by what.
I see.
Right? I mean, so for some people, you can give them a monetary, like a bonus if they hit a certain goal, and they couldn't care less. Because their focus, they don't give much care about the money, right? On the other hand, there's people that you can move significantly by offering money bonuses, right? If you look at the typical businesses, sales position is often a job where you'll see monetary bonuses and or rewards, right? And that's because naturally the standard type salespeople, like very assertive, generally fairly outgoing people, they are naturally motivated by money a lot. So in majority of cases, it really makes sense to motivate salespeople by bonuses.
For sure.
However, if you do the same to a team of accountants or a team of developers, you will often get very different results because a lot of those people have a different values. For sure. All right, that's quite useful information. Now, in terms of management of people or HR practices and things like that, do you use any tools that you can recommend, like any software packages or any kind of tools, methodologies that you use to implement these strategies? Yeah, I mean, we fundamentally use the DISC behavior model a lot. I believe DISC is probably the most powerful tool out there from understanding behaviors, and not so much because it's particularly unique compared to many of the others, but because it have a very easy ability to learn to tell things about people. Like one of the things that I've always enjoyed with DISC, like if a stranger sits down to me in an airplane that I've never spoken to before, those 10 seconds before he sit down generally just looking at him generally tells me enough about him to tell him things about himself that he don't know.
Oh, wow. So
right.
What is this DISC framework? Can you tell?
So DISC, it's similar to like Myers-Briggs and some of these other personality frameworks. The only thing is it's a lot simpler to understand, and it's very, very easy to use it rather than having someone like, hey man, can you take this test so I can see who you are? The benefit of DISC is it's very, very easy to look at people, look at their natural behaviors, and utilize that to understand the personality. The problem with all personality tests is that based on yourself, it's a self-assessment. One, some people don't know themselves very well. And two, particularly in job interview situations, people have a tendency to answer what they think you want to hear rather than the truth, right? That's why DISC is so powerful, because you can very quickly learn to actually tell a lot about people rather than having to rely on tests and stuff.
That's great. And where can people learn about this DISC framework?
There's not a ton of training out there, but I've like, it's part of the management course that I've built. And I've done videos and really walked through it all, right? That there is some free tests you can find, like Tony Robbins, for example, have a free test on it. Again, every time in tests like that, generally what happens is the test result can change. However, reality is your natural behavior do not change. Right? Like you can learn new skills and you can practice things you're not so good at, but your natural behavior do not change in your lifetime. So if your scores change, it's a question of the way you judge yourself, right? Rather than necessarily your personality having changed. And again, that's where DISC becomes very powerful, because Myers-Briggs is the same. I mean, your fundamental natural behavior doesn't actually change, but majority of people, every time they take a Myers-Briggs test, they get different results.
Right? Okay, that's interesting. All right. Is there anything else that I haven't asked about people management that you may want to share?
I think, I mean, one of the key fundamentals for me with management, and particularly like in this day and age where a lot of entrepreneurs hire remote staff, is something as simple as talk to your staff. Right, like actually building real relationship, getting to know your employees. Is really, really important, right? There's generally a common framework called one-to-ones that's great for that. But like if you're only Skyping with your staff, or like if you don't have like a weekly or bi-weekly time where you actually sit like we're doing here on a video call talking to your staff, you're losing out. Because again, like, right, if a friend of you calls you up and say, hey, can you help me move next weekend? I need to move to a different house. Now, your response will probably depend on how good a friend that is, right? Now, it's the same in business, right? The more respect, the more people feel you care about them and so on, the more they're willing to do for you. Right? And when you actually take people serious, when you build a good relationship with them, you're much, much more likely to get a much better performance from.
That's for sure. I experience that in my own business as well. So I have remote employees and I have daily calls with them. So building those relationships is very important for sure. All right. Great. This was a great interview, and I think our audience got a lot of value out of it. Now, before I let you go, can you tell us a little bit about your company, your services, and your management course that you...
For sure. So my masssingers.com is my website, and that's where my management course is, right? I built that specifically because a lot of people couldn't, particularly in the early stages, couldn't really afford like paying for coaching over a larger period of time, right? So majority of my coaching client is generally people who are already fairly successful, but I really wanted to help like new people that haven't got that many staff and are looking to grow, because a lot of them can benefit from the experience, right? So I built the course specifically to help that audience and really help them get off to a better management staff, right?
Cool.
So the course is really, and right now all my coaching clients go through that first.
I see.
So basically, people don't become coaching clients before they've been through that, because it helps us set a common framework for how to effectively manage people. And I call it the 80-20 of effective people management.
Okay, awesome. Okay, great. Thank you so much. And I'm pretty sure, everyone in the audience got a lot of value, and this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. We learned a lot.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me.
So again, I'm Manuj Aggarwal, and thanks a lot for joining us on Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. And now, if you are an existing or an aspiring technology entrepreneur, then I invite you to check out my new online workshop, Bootstrapping Your Tech Startup Dreams. Go to go.tetranoodle.com/boot-podcast and sign up for free. I want to make sure more successful and sound decisions are made every day in your tech projects. Let's start finding solutions to your problems. So go to go.tetranoodle.com/boot-podcast, and I look forward to helping you with your tech startup.